Uh, Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the IvyCap Ventures Imagine series presented in partnership with IVCA. My name is Anju Gupta. I work with IvyCap Ventures and welcome everybody. Hope everybody is keeping safe, keeping healthy. Very interesting times. We have an exciting webinar with, a very interesting set of panelists. Just a couple of things on process. I'm going to give a quick introduction, for those of you who are not familiar with IvyCap Ventures and IvyCamp. I will then turn it over to Ashish Wadhwani, who is a managing partner at IvyCap Ventures and our moderator for today. And he can then introduce the panelists, give you a little bit of background. Everybody has been put on mute for now, except for the panelists. As you have questions, please type them into the chat box with your name and your company name. And we will then pass those questions on to the moderator, who will then share them with the panelists. So anybody who has questions, please put them into the chat box. So to get started, everybody, just a little background on IvyCap Ventures for those of you who are new to us. IvyCap Ventures was a venture capital fund founded in 2011. And the vision of the fund was to leverage our global alumni ecosystems from our institutes to foster entrepreneurship across the country and to identify and invest in, high potential entrepreneurs, high growth businesses that we felt had a potential to be market leaders. IvyCap as a fund is guided by an entrepreneur-centric investment approach. And we focus, our deal flow comes through the alumni network of the premier educational institutions of India. And in our thesis, we believe that, for early growth stage companies, it's very important to have a collaborative approach. And as part of our investment model, we have a very unique structured mentor model. And the mentor comes from our global alumni network that bring the experience and the skills to support and create value across our portfolio companies. To even grow more our alumni engagement, we launched IvyCamp in 2015 as an engagement platform. And it's India's first unified entrepreneurship platform leveraging the alumni network. And what we do is basically, it's almost like a super incubator that brings together our mentors, investors, accelerators, incubators, entrepreneurs, and institutes to create value for our early stage entrepreneurs. We also work very closely with corporate organizations, to help them find very targeted solutions to their problems, help startups, engage with them to grow, to conduct POCs, to join the accelerators. We work together to build a very strong entrepreneurship ecosystem. And as part of this, IvyCap has created a very unique give back program where it shares part of its own profits with the educational system and the institutes to be plugged back into support for entrepreneurship. Today, it's very interesting times for all of us. It's a new environment to run a company, to invest, to engage with customers in our everyday life. And, these circumstances are changing almost on an everyday basis now. As we're learning more and more, our network has been raising a lot of questions in terms of how we plan for a sustainable growth forward. Basically, we are launching this Imagine series, a webinar series to debate these questions, to provide answers, and to engage with our network. We're introducing a number of corporate leaders, business leaders, academicians across the country as part of our panels in this webinar to help us discuss these questions, navigate through these difficult times, help our network identify opportunities. Our first webinar today is kicking off in partnership with IVCA with a discussion on one of the driving forces in our economy, the customer. So in our fireside chat today, moderated by Ashish, we want to discuss some interesting questions about, who the new consumer is in this post-COVID environment. What are some of the behaviors we're looking forward to, what are some of the surprises? And with that, I will now turn it over to Ashish Wadhwani. Again, welcome everybody to this webinar.
Thank you very much, Anju. It's a pleasure. Good evening and good afternoon and good morning, everyone, wherever you are. We have a very august panel today, represented from different parts of the world. Let me start with Christian. He's in Germany. Moshe joins us from Israel. Sandeep, of course, is in India, and I'm here in Singapore. So hopefully, in spite of COVID, we can bring a lot of people together from different parts of the world to share their insights. So let me quickly introduce the panel. We are very fortunate to have Sandeep Kataria, who is the CEO and President of Bata. And he has 25 years of experience in consumer marketing, FMCG, and telecom. And he spent time with Videocon, with Yum, KFC, Unilever. And at Bata, he's transforming a contemporary brand into a modern and forward-looking one for the millennials too. Welcome, Sandeep, and thanks for joining us. We also have Moshe from Israel. He's a tech entrepreneur and an investor. He's spent 15 years as an entrepreneur and built 4 companies. He's also built a lot of incubators and startups, innovation centers in Israel, 3 of them, and he's also a board member at Precedence and IF, an alumni of there. And of course, he's got a number of startups and accelerators to his credit. Welcome, Moshe. Thanks for joining us. Chris is joining us from Germany. I believe you're there, Chris?
Yes, I am.
And he's a fintech advisor. He spent, again, 25 years in the financial services industry, advising corporates from China, India, Europe, and he's been very active in the startup ecosystem across these continents, and he's also on the board of many fintech companies and in Asia and Europe. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, gentlemen, let me start with a very, very cliche question. I think everyone is talking about the world has changed, right? And it's really strange because most of us haven't been outside our house, but we know the world has changed. So let's start with seeing it from your lens as to how do you think the world has changed and is changing. Christian, do you want to go first?
Well, yes, you mentioned it. So I haven't left my house basically for almost 3 months now, but I'm probably more connected with the world than before, because I now can have a conference call in the morning with Hong Kong and in the evening with New York, and I don't have to be there. Nobody else is there. So what is gone is that FOMO part, the fear of missing out. So you can do everything in one day, basically. At the same time, you're rediscovering, I think, your immediate environment. So people are rediscovering the nature in their own district. They are discovering more local food and their neighbors and, of course, their family. So I think that has definitely changed, and I think that will have probably a lasting impact on also consumer behavior in the future.
Very interesting. Discovering local behavior and food, etc. Moshe, how do you think the world has changed and is changing?
Wow. First of all, I fully agree about Christian last sentences, because also we in Israel, in a small country like Israel with 9 million people, was the first country that started and closed their border. And we had the 3 months of isolation. I must say that there wasn't any lockdown. It was just only 2 weeks of lockdown, and in the last couple of weeks we started. Everything is open from kindergarten, schools, and things like that. But I must say that part of my activity on creating innovation and incubator and things like that was to convince that you can do almost everything remotely, especially from aspect of technology. And there was a lot of things that you need to educate the market, that from insurance company up towards government, that said no one can work remotely. So I think the biggest change was from perspective of what it means to work remote, that you can do almost everything remotely. Second, the work-life balance and the time scheduling, that you can adjust from family ties and family duties, especially that everyone is at home, versus to continue to do business and to do innovation, and nothing is happening. So it's not, the world wasn't damaged due to the fact that you are mixing these elements together. So I think this is a huge change in the perspective that you can do. You can have your own life, your family ties, your parenthood, and also to do business. And so I think these are the main elements that I saw.
It looks like you're really enjoying it, Moshe.
Very well.
Sandeep, sitting in Delhi, in Gurgaon, has anything changed?
I think as Christian and Moshe said, there are so many things that we would never have imagined to be able to do outside of the office. And in a fashion design kind of a space where you think it's all about meeting consumers, brainstorming together and working together, all of that, the fact that it works. And even though now offices have been open and some of us have gone into the office 3-4 weeks ago, we're not feeling the need for everybody to rush back. Just kind of underlines that things have changed. And I think one of several spin-offs of this will be, it's not just WFH, which is work from home. I think one of the biggest ones will be women from home. A lot of women who were going to drop out earlier because they wouldn't be able to come to work. Suddenly you have them available and able to join in. I don't know when was the last time I wore a collared shirt and a jacket. And it's not because I haven't gone to work, but it is a mindset which I'm carrying even when I am going to work. So you are wearing a polo t-shirt, which for me otherwise would have been something at work or on the golf course. Now, somehow that seems okay to take to work as well. So there is the blurring of lines that Moshe was talking about. I'm not sure I'm too glad about the work and family life blurring. It is extending and it's extending a bit too much. When you were home, you were together. Now you're home, you're all in your own rooms behind closed doors because you're all on some kind of a conference. So you could pretty much, again, be anywhere, but that blurring is a crazy piece. Everybody that
absolutely
is talking about days becoming longer. And Christian already talked about starting with Hong Kong time and ending with New York time. So the sun never sets, pretty much. So that's, I think, for each one of us. On purchasing and buying behavior, of course, there's going to be a ramification of all of this.
Let me come to that. I think I have a specific question for you on that, Sandeep. But I think absolutely right. I think a bunch of things around remote working and getting new women, more participation, hopefully, on the labor force, a more connected world in some ways. And I can see that we are spending the screen time has gone up by a multiple between our various screens. So let's park that and we'll come back to some of these, and link it to some of the changes on the B2B side. But Sandeep, on the idea of consumers, right? I mean, let's think about in our various businesses that we look at or invest in. How do you see consumer behavior changing? How are their buying practices and patterns changing? And what do you see in India?
So what I'm looking at, Ashish, is that I think it will be 4 phases. So we will see all the 4 phases being played out. There was a phase to start off, which was pretty much about survival, everybody getting a little worried. Will the company survive? What will happen, etc., etc. We're now in the revive phase in India, and I think in a number of other markets. It's unlock, 1.0. We're thinking about it, but we're still in the revival mindset. We haven't really come out and started behaving even in the new normal. Yes, it's going to be a new normal, but not quite. So when you're in this revival phase, you're still in this, let me get the essentials going. Let me go get stuff which broke down. So if my category, if there was a chappal or a sandal I was wearing at home, or sports shoes which I really run down because I was exercising while at home, let me go get a replenishment. Let me get the new mixer grinder which I have really used and realized in some cases that I had, and I knew how to use it and maybe broken down. So some of those really replenishments of the important type. We're going to move into a revitalize, which is going to be saying, okay, now I've done that. I'm beginning to feel a bit more confident. I'm beginning to know how to live with this. And that's when you will start looking at, okay, let me buy the shoes to go to work. They may not be the brown Oxfords, still, but something that I will go to work with. So I'm calling that the revitalize. Okay, so really coming back into a bit more of work, getting out of home more easily, stepping out not as gingerly as we are in this revival phase. And then you will get into a thrive phase, which is probably going to need a inflection point in India. It could be the festivals in October, November. It could be later if things don't go in a straight line as far as recovery goes. But that's how it, and that's only when you start saying, okay, now let me wear and buy some discretionary fashion stuff. I have a place to go to. For fashion
Right.
to buy, you need to have some place to show it off. You buy a little bit for yourself, but you buy essentially for others to see you. So that's probably going to be a 4th phase, which will happen.
So 4 phases of downturn, facing the downturn as a consumer and recovering. That's really very well put, Sandeep. Moshe, I want to shift to the B2B side. And you work with a lot of technology companies. How are you seeing the CEOs' agendas changing, and what is the likely impact on the spending that they would have on technology and other areas?
Yeah, I think that first of all, it depends on the maturity of the company. There is a huge differences between pre-seed companies, seed companies, and more mature companies. In general, from aspect of burn rate and things like that, first of all, there will be less events, less marketing, conferences, flying abroad. A lot of things moved into online and into Zoom activities. Also, from aspect of sales and business development, there is a lot of activities remotely, like the one that we are doing from webinar point of view, but you can, there is a lot of opportunity because everyone is located at home, so you can reach everyone. And all the aspect of, it's coming from aspect of all the sales and marketing approach, it's changing dramatically from offline to online. Second, there is activities also in Israel. You see this also in the States, especially for big companies, that you are working from home. The reduction of the real estate need and in the office operational needs are changing a lot. And it started from Twitter that decided with whom do you want that can start working at home, and includes Google, Facebook, Intel, and the rest that were working on a daily basis, even before the corona, on at least 1 or 2 days from home that you can work with. A third element is, I think that all the aspect of funding, I think like in every crisis or economical crisis, there will be like limits in aspect of procurement and purchasing of new technologies regarding especially enterprise companies. It depends also the amount of money that the companies have. For example, there is a statistics that are mentioning that almost 50% from the startup companies in the States, for example, can survive no more than 6 months. The average additional 20 companies can have a runway of a year. So if you don't have enough technology that you put in place, or starting your own sales activities abroad, it will be very challenging right now to go to expenses. Also, there is a lot of changes in aspect of in headcount. So there is from layoff up towards, changing in the roles of companies, especially from R&D point of view. I think that another element that is getting that even the company valuation towards investments, I can say it in Israel and also from the States, that the valuation of the company was reduced between 25 up to 45% from the period of time before the coronavirus. So I think the challenges is continue to do the international work, business, sales, marketing, mainly globally online, less operational expenses and direct events and conferences and flight abroad, moving towards remote activities.
Right.
And I think in the second element, there is also a lot of opportunities in the market, especially from aspect of collaboration. And also there is a lot of technologies that related to COVID-19 that there is also a merge of a lot of companies doing a pivot towards this vertical.
Well, that's very interesting. I think including the stuff on automation of lots of sales and marketing processes, cut down on discretionary. I think you pointed out lower valuations and perhaps lower investments by the startup community until we see a rebound over there. So let's do that. Thanks for that, Moshe. Let's move on to the financial services side. Christian, do you see any trend around technology in the financial services accelerating? Do you think that's a trend, or is there anything new that we're going to see there?
Well, yes, definitely. I think this COVID crisis can turn out to be a game changer and a breakthrough for digital technologies in financial services, particularly in Germany, where we have a very aging population and a conservative clientele. And people have started changing their habits because they had to. It's like with Zoom conferences or working from home. Previously unimaginable. My kids are being schooled via Zoom now because there's no alternative. So people had to get accustomed to it. They had to set aside their reservations, their questions about data security and all the likes. And the same goes for digital and electronic and contactless payments at the moment. So we have a very odd trend at the moment. So overall consumer spending has been going down slightly over the past 3 months. So the supermarkets have gone up. Other consumer goods like fashion and the likes have gone down. Simultaneously, people are paying more electronically, and cash withdrawals are also on the up. So people are not spending the cash. They still like cash in Germany. They're probably putting it under the mattress or in the cookie box or somewhere to save it up for bad times. But the question for me will be, how sustainable is this? And I would like to compare it a little bit to the demonetization we saw in India back in 2016, where everybody was using electronic payments all of a sudden because there was no cash available, and then people went back. That is something, of course, people now see it's safe, it's convenient. I think that's a lasting trend. But on the other hand, what I'm a bit afraid of, we have 19% VAT sales tax in Germany, up to 50% profit and income tax. So there's still some, like in India, still some incentive to go back to cash.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that Germany also had an incentive to go to cash.
Yes, I
But
mean,
that's interesting. One of the challenges that we face as investors, and I'm sure all of you face in your respective areas of work, is that it's very hard to predict and quantify because there are very often opposing forces at play. So I want to get some quick reactions on some of these opposing forces, and what do you think? Sandeep, let me start with you. I think the whole idea that there's going to be a recession leads to thinking that consumers will be very conscious of spending, and at the same time, you need to reconcile that with some amount of pent-up demand, and perhaps a certain habit that consumers have to just spend, right? So how do you really see these forces playing out? I mean, where or are these not contradictory?
I think, I mean, let me just put the distractor out of the picture. The pent-up demand is by definition a pent-up demand, right? It will be a little bit when you're saying, I've been at home for 3 months, things do break down. If you use it, anything, every day. In my case, the mixer grinder, which I have now used, more often than I've ever, probably touched it in the last 3 years. It's broken down. I need to go repair it. In Europe, we went into the lockdown in winter. We've come out in spring. It's a different season. I need to buy slightly different things. So there's a week or 2 weeks that you will say, okay, because there's a new thing which is needed, and I quickly see that out. So you will see that pent-up demand. It is slightly different. For a fashion guy, if you were still carrying winter or early spring collections, that's still very much there. But the summer collection, which you had probably some leftover from last year or just about put it in, has gone off. And you suddenly say, oh, you know what? I'm running out of lines.
Right.
So that's bound to happen. But if you look at how the longer term demand and how consumers are going to look at it is, I think the fact is that this is a time when consumers do reevaluate brands. I think this is the time when branding and both from supply and demand side start getting questioned. Yeah. From the demand side, people are less open to taking risks on new things. It's okay, I'll try one. If it doesn't work, I'll buy another one. Kind of an attitude reduces. So you want to go back and go to brands you trust, and you say, okay, let me not take chances. Even if there's a 20% shift, that's a very significant shift for
Right.
brands shares.
Right.
And on the supply side, it's the bigger guys who have a bit more control on their own supply chains, have the bit of cash that they can handle, had a lot more stuff happening vertically inside their own companies, are able to take advantage of the demand. So I think both of those come together to change market shares. And if you have a trusted brand, a brand of size, I think in the short term, you have a chance to gain share. Now, overall, how much does it reduce the market size or increase depends, of course, on category to category.
Sure.
As we've seen, biscuits are shooting through the roof right now. There are other things which will drop down. So that will happen, I think, varying category by category. But even within biscuits,
Right.
I would bet my money on market share going up of the big trusted brands right now.
So big trusted brands go up. While you are at it, one more trend, online versus offline. Is that a one-way street, or you think offline will fight back?
No, I think there will be more people trying it. In India, I think it'll be in different ways that they will try online. So online doesn't always mean, going onto a marketplace.
Sure.
We are seeing people buying from WhatsApp with us,
Right.
calling in, doing a video call, show me what you have. Consumers are coming in. The one guy from the family comes in with the shoe size for the kid and for the wife, and then he switches on his camera and shows all the products to people back at home. So I'm not sure whether you'll call that online or you will call that omni-channel or what you want to call it.
Right.
But there is clearly a change in behavior. Some of this is short-term, but I think as people discover convenience, it could hold up. I think they will be settled at a higher level. I think all brands need to also take that a bit more seriously. But then again, as Christian was saying, we saw that happening in Demon. Yeah, did we go from 5 to 25 and come back to 10? And that's probably what's happening. I would bargain on it settling at 25.
But online was a trend anyway, right?
That's what I'm saying. So it is clearly the direction which is going, convenience, the younger generation which is born into it, much more comfortable with it. Also, I think one of the things it is doing is maybe because that was the one thing you could do while you were at home, a lot more companies reevaluating their own offerings and adding things into their online offering. So whether it is, as I said, WhatsApp ordering, or it's a way to measure your shoe size while you were at home, which we didn't have earlier. So things like that you obviously wanted to add to the experience, which will make stickier customers for sure.
So potentially more technology enabled shopping experience, whether it is online and offline, both.
That's what I would sum it up as. Yeah.
Right. Great. Now, Christian, you mentioned right at the start, something around local taste. So let me throw this question at you. We've seen a wave last 40 years of global consumerism, right? And there is now, obviously, there was a break, coming up even before COVID. But do you see a lot of people moving towards local products now, whether it is national or regional or even local?
Actually, I think the COVID crisis is not turning around any trends. It's fostering and strengthening existing trends like local produce, like more environmental awareness, like biological and organic produce. Also, flight shaming has been around for some time, particularly in the Western countries, with the Fridays for Future movement last year. For climate change awareness. I think that will probably be going on for quite some time, but I'm also expecting a backlash on that. So people will have to be living with travel restrictions for some months, if not a year to come. And then once that's over and we have a vaccination, I think people will probably start traveling more than before because they want to see all the people they couldn't see in the past and all the likes. So at the same time, I think we see a huge process of concentration because Netflix, Zoom, and the likes have gone through the roof during the crisis. And I think that will sustain. So that will be global brands, but that'll be the select few probably. So we'll have both trends simultaneously. On the one hand, we'll have more local produce. On the other hand, global brands. The same goes for sports in Germany. So the Bundesliga football is very much has a monopoly at the moment because they've got all the exceptions. They can afford all the hygiene measures. And there's no other sports. There's no hockey Bundesliga anymore. There's no handball. There's no volleyball. There's nothing else. So, and I think that'll break a lot of sports clubs' necks at the moment. And the same goes for other industries. So we'll probably have two poles, opposing poles in the future, and the middle ground, like that's been going on for quite some time, like the middle classes, the middle consumer segments. They will suffer from that probably. So either you have a strong brand proposition or some other cause, more localized. And
great. I mean, it looks like whatever these trends are, there is emerging consolidation, there is strengthening of trends. There's also clearly new opportunity. I mean, sort of Moshe spoke about that in the enterprise space, and both you and Sandeep spoke about it in fintech and consumer. Let's talk a little bit about what are the major opportunities. Moshe, as an investor, what are the big areas that you are tracking and see opportunity in the B2B side of things? You mentioned automation work from home tools. Could you drill down a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think there is at least 4 or 5 verticals that will emerge. One is all the aspect of shipment and logistics, especially doing, for example, in Israel, a lot of, from restaurants up, groceries and things like that, didn't have any online platform. And due to the COVID, there is a huge demand in order to supply the demands of due to the fact that there is isolation, so you cannot go to the market. So only based on platform of shipment and ordering and e-commerce platform. So there is a huge demand, even domestically in Israel, for a lot of technologies that related to this vertical. The other vertical is all aspect of remote. It can be remote learning, remote work, remote medical diagnostic remotely, up towards, aspect of, manufacturing and of Industry 4.0 that based on sensor and based on some element of artificial intelligence and machine learning, you can know in advance what is happening. So all the maintenance can be done remotely, and also to reduce the cost, the operational costs. So I think the 4 elements are shipment and logistic, remote learning, work, medical diagnostic, cost reduction, and aspect of big data, AI, and machine learning, which especially also in the COVID, you see what is the impact of big data about public sector, public health, government fully understand that they need to be also in this area as well. So I think there is a lot of opportunities in these 4 or 5 verticals.
That the list is very interesting. It doesn't sound like a recession here at all, right? I mean, one would think that you would say, look, we are not investing for the next 6 months. But I think that's what happens. I think investors thrive on disruptions, and what you are pointing out, there can't be a bigger disruption than this on a global basis. So what you're pointing out is really large sectors having lots of opportunity just because they're getting disrupted. So very interesting. I think that should really, get people with their checkbooks out, and I'm sure gives them the ROI for this for the time spent today. But thanks for that, Moshe. Christian, emerging opportunities in fintech. What do you think? Or is it more consolidation of the stronger?
Well, it's at the moment, I think there's a lot of bright ideas that may be running out of cash depending on the runway and the willingness and ability of existing investors to provide them with new cash. Because what I've seen so far with the deal flows is it works fairly well to convince existing investors to give you new money, but getting new investors on board is that is, I think, where Zoom and the likes fail. It's something without a face-to-face meeting is not good. And to come back to your question, I think what we are experiencing at the moment is a lot of people change their habits. They make the experience that digital, remote, mobile technologies work also in fintech, and they will stick to those habits. They will get used to them. I think the crisis, it's fortunate in that respect, the crisis is long enough to probably sustainably change habits of many people. You say 90 days or so when you're on a diet or something, it takes 90 or 220 days to change your habits. And I think that'll hopefully be enough time for them to stick to that. And so where I see the opportunities is anything that facilitates that level of convenience people are getting used to, like working from home, like combining omni-channel and retail, like seeing something in a shop and then buying at home, making fintech invisible, just like a facilitator. I think that is something where we can pick up people. And people will see also in AI and with blockchain that these technologies are working, and they are increasingly seeing the benefits of technology at the moment. Right. Because that's in Western countries, as opposed to most Asian countries I travel to, the problem is that people had a strong emphasis on the threats, on the dangers of innovation, because they don't have pain points. They're pretty content with what they've got. And at the moment, so they have to change their habits. They see the benefits. And I think that can be also a booster in that respect, that people get more used to it, put aside their reservations, give it a try, because at the moment you're trying so many things. So people are starting yoga classes, everything they can do at home remotely. And I think that can be something that I would bank on for the future as well.
Very interesting. Since you talk of habits, I'll ask you a trick question there. Since Bundesliga is the only game in town, do you think is that habit changing, or people will shift back to EPL and La Liga?
I think it's a bad thing at the moment. I think the gap is spreading in so many respects. So some people are ignoring Bundesliga altogether because they say our kids are not properly schooled because there's not enough testing facilities at the moment still in Germany. At the same time, you start Bundesliga. So there will be more people opposed to Bundesliga. But I think on the other hand, it's very bad for all the other sports. It's very bad for the mass sports mass. I think at the same time, we have more people exercising heavily at the moment, and the average weight gain has been 3 to 4 kilos in Germany. So
that's interesting.
A big spread in the population now as well. So the one part of the population, probably 20 to 30%, in my opinion, will benefit from that. On the other hand, it's not a good. But I'm afraid it will be more a concentration process in that respect towards the Bundesliga. We've seen that for many years, and this is because simply too many other clubs and sports leagues will be running out of cash too soon, I'm afraid.
Very interesting. Sandeep, let me pick your brains to sort of help pick winners, right? In the B2C space, and there are all kinds of categories, and I particularly want to look at online and offline trend, sort of overlaying that on this B2C. How would you identify winners in the post-COVID world? What are the traits of a winner in the B2C space in the post-COVID world?
I think the agility is absolutely going to be an important one. If you look at, there will be changes in the consumer behavior. I think, as I was describing you, there are going to be 4 phases. How long each phase is going to be, who knows? In each of the phases, the demand, the expectation from the consumer are bound to change. Agility is going to be more important than ever before.
Right.
It isn't about doing more of what you were doing. Ability for people to change, try out new things, experiment. In our industry, change inventory, adapt inventory is going to be a huge piece here. The second is ability to use the channels. Again, don't know how long, which one, but the fact that you need to be omni-channel today than more than you ever were. Yes, we were already hearing it. They were already, the big retailers were beginning to do it. But now finally you're saying, the big retailers are saying, no, I need to have my own brand.com or whatever, has to be at par with everybody else. Suddenly, now the guys were able to move quickly. It might be a bit late, but move quickly are going to be important. I would look for them to do it. There is going to be, I think, again, in the thrive phase, there's going to be I think a YOLO phase as well. One of the things that the current crisis is doing is also letting everybody know about our own mortalities in some way or the other. Now, yes, it could go into one and say, you hunker down and save your money and stretch it as much as you can. And the other reaction could be, no, as Christian was saying, maybe now that I can travel, I've got the vaccination, let me do it. But it could be the YOLO piece. Now, people who are able to, again, take advantage of that, don't know which way, but people who are able to move on either one of those and pivot quickly are going to be the ones that
Right.
what I would be looking for. Yeah.
Great. So
And
agility and omnichannel. Sorry, go ahead.
And there are industry. I mean, there are sectors which I mean, this clearly digital engagement you would bet on. I know it's probably already run up too high, but that's going to be there. It is going to be more and more of our life. Telecom, again, probably run some of its thing, but there were obviously some which have been run up more than the others.
Sure.
I think there's opportunity there to be able to take advantage. So there will be sector-specific stuff for sure.
On omnichannel, one quick thought and comment. Isn't there a different DNA for offline and online, or do you need to build a separate kind of team which is able to think both online and offline?
No, I think you do clearly need dedicated teams in the back end. You do need. There is a mindset. But what is really successful is when you're able to find a person who is able to blend them together. Back end, you can go out and buy almost. Yeah, there are enough and more suppliers. You can also install technology. Bringing in technology into retail for me has been the easiest part. You can buy it. It comes in. It's the cultural, the guy who's able to then fuse it together culturally is the one that really then unleashes it. Even within my own, within Bata, we can see the difference across regions and across regional managers. The passion, the ability to be able to see it, to then be able to get excited and convert it. Changes from stores which do 5% of their turnover to.
Sorry, did we lose Sandeep? I think we lost Sandeep there. Wait for him to come back. One more question for you, Christian.
Mm-hmm.
In fintech, any particular sub-segments that you think are worth investing in?
Well, I would say it's the loans business, integrating them into payment facilities will definitely be on the up, because people will use their smartphones much more extensively now that they experienced what it's good for. And yes, everything that makes it more smoother and more convenient for people. I think the biggest trend will now be convenience for people and giving them a better consumer experience, because I think that's what people are suffering now at the moment in Western markets, is the lack of experience, shopping, of socializing and things. And that's something which I would expect for the future.
So we are kind of running out of time, but let me take lots of questions from everyone. Thanks for your active participation, guys. But let me take a few of them. Sandeep, are you back?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Sorry, we lost you for a minute in the middle.
Yeah.
There's one question for you, which is around if you see more work from home. So you see demand for fashion and accessories recovering. What would you do to stimulate usage of such products?
See, I think what is happening is if there is more work from home, people are also having more time to be able to do a wide variety of things. For us, as work from home and the easy sandals and chappals have gone up, simultaneously sports shoes and staying active attire and footwear has gone up, even as the more formal footwear has taken a backseat for the short term. So it's not as if we're not yet we are wearing slippers and shoes and stuff around the house. So we do need to be on camera quite often, all of us. So it's just that I think the need has changed. So we do need to adapt to that, is my sense. Yes, it will stay. As I said, we need to pivot. We need to be able to read some of these trends. That's what I guess our merchandisers and our collection teams are always good at. to be able to adapt to that changing need. As soon as things, I think, open up, there is a, as I said, we talked a little bit about it, pent up demand for the short period that's bound to come up. People are wanting to step out. Maybe they don't travel overseas for a short term, but I predict holidays in the neighborhood are going to surely jump. People will want to go out. People haven't been on holiday by any stretch of imagination. So there will be a whole lot of other things which will come on. So to me, those are doomsday scenario which I don't quite subscribe to.
Sure.
Not quite yet.
So one more question for you, or in fact for all of you. We've talked a lot about changes in customer behavior. What will not change? What aspects of consumer behavior will remain the same? I guess the question is for all of you on B2B or B2C. Moshe, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think that what won't be changed, I think that the aspect of I think that from aspect, especially towards the next year, is that is to do things remotely. I think all the aspect of doing jobs, work at home remotely, doing purchasing remotely, doing shipment and things like that. I think this is something that people understand now, from technology, everything is put in place and it's more easier. And again, in some cases, from aspect of even from aspect of work-life balance, it gives time to to do things on your way, like you said, in your pajama at home, which I don't think this is going to vanish. I think the aspect of it's very hard to predict what will be in the next 6 months, 1 year, especially towards what is happening regarding all the COVID-19 aspect, especially from aspect of health. But another element that might change, it's all the aspect of personal care. I think that all the elements, especially in the one hand, in the treatment to older people, an aspect of personal care from medical. We see this here in Israel, that all the approach regarding due to the fact that you need to be isolated and you need to get diagnostics on time remotely, I think this will be a huge, it will get a huge progress forward, because at the beginning, even before purchasing clothes or shoes or things like that, we need to be, first of all, safe and with good health.
Right.
So I think that this is one of the areas that will emerge, and in new technologies and trends that will give you on the spot, decisions if you have a coronavirus, yes or no, up towards different typecast of a spectrum of diagnostic tools and real-time decision in medical arena.
Great. Now there's another interesting question. I think we are still on the early days of recovery, more the pent-up side of demand. But the question is, do you see a significant demand compression, and should we press the panic button and start offering discount and tinkering with price points? Sandeep?
I think it's too early to do any of that. We do need to see how this ramping up goes. To the answer to your earlier question, what will not change? What will not change is, it's a pretty hackneyed, and maybe you would say it's a homily, but consumers will always look for value for money. Yeah. You ask a German, you ask the American, you ask the Indian, you ask the Chinese, they're all looking for value for their money. The value, what defines value, changes. Yeah,
that's right.
Slightly from place to place. Within India, the Gujarati looks for value in bulk purchases. The UPI looks for value in small unit purchases so that it doesn't go waste. So the value changes the connotation, but it says, and that's what's going to happen, Ashish. I think the value for money is going to be very, very important, even more important now if it was possible. Now, what defines value, and therefore for marketers, for companies, is to go back to consumers, understand how things are changing, what will define value. If you're trying to offer me something which is not valuable for me right now, you better start discounting. But if you're able to come up to speed with it, understand what's going to happen. For us, for example, washable collection, straight off the bat, you can see people are a little bit more touchy about it. There are some concerns about what am I carrying back home. You put out a washable collection, it flies off. There is a need you've tapped into, and consumers will go out and catch it wherever they are.
No, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. Go back to basics. You can't go wrong once you work on first principles and look at what the consumer wants, look at the gaps, look at his value, and then build from there. I think in these times, going back to basic fundamentals and working from there is always a good idea. So I think we've run out of time, gentlemen. I think it's already been an hour, and I'd like to sort of bring this to an end, but just around the not tables anymore, but screens, and get any concluding remarks from the three of you. Christian, you want to go first?
Yes, I do think it creates a lot of opportunities, a lot of insecurity for the months to come. So I think people will continue to look for value, but humans will always be social beings. And I think this is also a trend we saw in China for the past couple of years already with social commerce and the likes. I think any product in commerce or in financial technology that facilitates the need for social contacts, for communicating, for showing up, for exchanging views, I think will have an edge over competition.
Moshe?
Yeah, I fully agree with Christian last comment. I think that due to the fact that we are not fully aware what will be changed during COVID-19 and how long it will take, I think people will mainly think about in aspect of consumer behavior. I think that most of the purchasing and all the human behavior will remain in the online area. I think more and more e-commerce platform will be emerged in aspect of to give the consumer the right product in the right time in the most flexible time frame that he needs. In addition to this, like I mentioned, I do think that people are missing the social impact, the community driven, the aspect that relates to one another. So more and more aspect of session like these will be expanded dramatically.
Sandeep?
Let me bring in a completely different dimension, which is, I think I am a big believer in the resilience of Indians in particular, and I think generally humans. And therefore, whatever we do not try and forecast or extend whatever we see in the next few weeks into long term. I think we need to be just ready to see and be on the lookout for inflection points which are going to happen. I'm predicting the you only live once kind of mindset coming in quite quickly in India, and people bouncing back. Don't ask me exactly when, but I think that's around the corner.
No, that's a very encouraging thought. From my perspective, certainly as an investor, pretty confident that life will come back. It may not come back in the same ways that we've been used to. So go back to the cliche that we started with. But what is very exciting for me is in these times, there's a lot of disruption in every sector you take. The behavior of consumers to the behavior of competition, the stress on competition to move in different directions, gives companies the chance to think about where what you're offering to the consumer is and what your competitive position in the market is, and also with shifting behavior. I think across sectors, whether it is B2C, B2B, or fintech, we identified a range of things which are new. And as an investor, that's very exciting because that means that there's an opportunity to create, tomorrow's winners. So on that note, let me stop here and thank you all for your participation. Sandeep, Moshe, and Christian, it's been fun. It's been very insightful hearing from the three of you from different parts of the world and different areas. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us, and for all the participants. Have a great evening ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.